I had barely unpacked after a long trip when I noticed a familiar sense of chaos brewing in my neighborhood. Karen, the notorious HOA enforcer, had somehow gotten herself convinced that I was violating rules she claimed applied to everyone, except her, of course. This time, she called the cops the moment I stepped onto my property, trying to intimidate me into leaving my ranch. When the officers arrived, I greeted them calmly and offered a cup of coffee. As they looked around, it became painfully obvious that the so-called violations she was complaining about were non-existent. Every fence, every gate, every structure on my ranch was legal, documented, and well within my property rights. I didn't just own the ranch, I oversaw multiple HOAs across the United States, a fact Karen had entirely underestimated. Her smug confidence began to crumble as I calmly explained the extent of my ownership and influence. "You see," I said with a quiet smile, "not only do I legally own this property, but I also oversee every HOA in the country. So any attempt to harass or intimidate me has consequences far beyond this neighborhood." Karen's face turned pale. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, suddenly aware that they were witnessing a showdown between entitlement and authority on a scale they hadn't anticipated. Karen sputtered, trying to argue her way out of the situation, but every word she spoke only confirmed her ignorance. I guided the officers through my property, showing them the boundaries, the deeds, and the legally recorded maps. Every single claim Karen had made fell apart under scrutiny. Meanwhile, Karen's calls to the HOA board turned frantic as they realized she had overstepped and could not undo her actions. The next few days were a lesson in legal precision. I filed formal complaints, documented every attempt at harassment, and ensured that Karen's actions were on record. The HOA had attempted to bully me, but my influence and knowledge ensured the situation was entirely reversed. Karen's reputation within the neighborhood plummeted, and her power was neutralized. By the end of the week, the HOA had formally acknowledged my rights. Karen was forced into an apology, humiliated and publicly exposed for her arrogance. I returned to my ranch, fully in control, with the knowledge that any future attempts at intimidation would meet the same measured, legal, and decisive response. This incident became a clear reminder to the neighborhood. Attempting to challenge someone who not only owns the land, but also controls the overarching authority is a catastrophic mistake. Karen's attempts to assert dominance had failed spectacularly, leaving her isolated and powerless. The moral was unmistakable. Ownership, preparation, and knowledge of the system will always outmatch entitlement and bullying. Karen had tried to call the shots, but she learned the hard way that I was not only a property owner but a force she could not contend with, and she would think twice before underestimating me again.